Okay. So, are you able to see my screen? One of you?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Great. So, welcome to another webinar on behalf of the Smaart testing community. It's a nice sunny day. It's getting hotter and hotter these days in Bangalore, especially. So we had 3 webinars in the past. This is the 4th webinar, and the speciality of this webinar is we are dedicating this webinar to the panel discussion on test-driven development. So one request is I would like everyone to mute their line so that there won't be any disturbance while speaking. So I request you to mute. Thank you. So let's go. Let's move to the next. Let's talk about the agenda. So what I would be doing is today, I would be giving an introduction to the community. There are new members who have joined this call, so it would help them understand what we do in the community, and also it would act as a refresher for people who have been there in the community. So I'll take around 15 minutes for that, and then I'll pass on the baton to Anup, who would be driving the panel discussion on unleashing TDD. That will go for approximately, depending upon the number of questions that we're going to have, I guess that will go for more than 1 hour and 15 minutes, maybe close to 1.5 hours, I guess. And then we're going to have we'll have Q&A, and then we'll conclude the conference maybe around 11:45 or so. That's the way the conference is organized today. Now, before I really talk about what the community is, I thought I'll give you a brief idea about what we do. What is the whole reason for starting this community? Just to, I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. This is Krishnan. I'm the founder of this community. I have got around close to 23 years experience overall in the industry in multiple companies. Now, one of the things that made me start this community is all about knowledge sharing. So knowledge is the key part of the technology-driven world, right? We all are aware of it, and you know that technology world is moving at tremendous speed. We hardly notice, right? So what we learned a few days back becomes a bit irrelevant on the D-Day. Well, it's not completely irrelevant, but what it means is it is very critical that we keep updating ourselves to stay relevant in this competitive world, especially in the field of information technology. So the whole reason is because there's a lot of new information coming in, a lot of new growth, new research, new innovation happening. So there's a lot to learn and a lot to be shared. So knowledge is meant to be shared, right? And as you share knowledge, it expands. The reason is because we all know that the more you give, the more you take, the more you give, people are ready to give you more, which means that's exactly what happens with knowledge also, right? And then knowledge sharing, if it happens in true sense, in a collaborative way, it grows at a massive speed, right? And the more knowledge that we accumulate, we become more and more confident in whatever we do, right? We are all aware of it. It brings in virtue, it brings in sense of belongingness, it instills courage in our mind, it brings more visibility, because if you are courageous, if you have a lot of confidence, you can visibly talk, and people will notice you very quickly, right? And obviously, in your organization, wherever you are, it brings in growth. So, I mean, people would notice you. They would think that you are ready for the next level because you are knowledgeable, and it's really not good to keep you at the same level. So you will grow at a faster pace, and it obviously improves your profile, and the last but not the least, it gives you the power to unleash things. That's what is the topic today, right? Unleashing TDD. The more knowledge you have, the more questions you ask. The more questions you ask, you get more knowledge. Obviously, it's a cyclic process. So it gives you the power to unleash. So with that, introduction, let me go to the next slide. let's talk about the smart testing community itself. If you look at the need, why did I start this community? See, typically, we are busy with our day job, right? Almost on a daily basis, we come in the morning to the company, we do what has been assigned to do, typically, right? Of course, there are a lot of people who are very innovative in nature. People, I mean, their manager need not assign anything to them. They try to find their path and direction. But normally, I would say, right, most of us, take instructions from our superiors, and we do our day job, right? And we are very, very confined to what we are asked to do, right? So what it means is there's a lot more to collaborate, as you saw. That brings in knowledge, improvement, but almost, collaboration is zero. We tend to collaborate very, very, very limited outside our organization. And in the sphere of, if you look at the whole technology world, the knowledge that is present inside our organization or inside the team is quite minuscule, isn't it? Right? I hope you all agree with me. It's very, very, very minuscule. And the amount of knowledge that one would gain by just communicating within the team is not going to help us as we grow, as we move forward, right? So what is important is we want to learn, we want to grow, but our system is pulling us back every time, right? We are all, looking at the same goals that we have, project 1, project 2, delivery 1, delivery 2. No, it's a repetitive process, right? So there is an immediate and urgent need to get out of the silo. I mean, when I say silo, I'm talking about the whole team being at silo, and break that pulling factor, right? So with that need, I thought that there is always a necessity to bridge this gap by bringing in people together. So the goal is actually for community learning through collaboration. We want to collaborate with each other so that we learn together as a community and we grow, right? So that's the whole idea of the smart testing community. This community is all about knowledge sharing, collaborating, and growing together. That's what it is. So how do we do it? We have monthly webinars like these. We have social networking. It means that at this point in time we communicate over WhatsApp, but very soon we are going to launch a website. The work is in progress at this point in time, and we are going to find out more and more avenues. We have a blog site, more and more avenues to actually communicate better and better, because I believe that as we grow the number of members, we may not have the required avenue in WhatsApp to communicate. It may not be the right forum to communicate. So we need other ways to socially network with each other. We also are thinking of having a face-to-face conference in April. I'll talk about it a little later. And then we plan to collaborate with other communities, especially within Bangalore, within India, and we also would like to participate in other conferences representing STC, Smart Testing Community. So that's the means that we have at this point in time. But predominantly, in the last 5 months of our existence, we have been doing the monthly webinars. That's been our main means of collaboration, other than the WhatsApp group that we have. So what do we gain by doing all these things? We gain improved knowledge, right? Mainly in the area of software quality, but I believe that there's a lot more we gain outside software quality also, right? What do we gain by being a member of this community? We get a lot of contacts. We get contacts at all levels, at all kinds of experience. So there's a lot of benefit in having those contacts, right? I guess you understand those benefits. We also have a sense of collaboration, right? I mean, we collaborate within the team, not necessarily within the company, right? But when we collaborate within the community, you get to know a lot of people outside your sphere of influence, right? And we have a sense of collaboration, right? And that's more important at this point in time. And of course, we have opportunity to present in conferences. I mean, any member of this community has the opportunity to talk about anything in the technology field within the purview of smart testing, software quality, right? Inside a conference, I mean, we have. Okay, it's my cell phone that says that Krish has left. I'm there through the different channel. So inside the community, we can present. We can also present outside the community by representing us. And we have opportunity to arrange conferences. So you have opportunity to arrange live conferences. The one that's going to happen in April or May, mostly in April. And finally, what we get is a kind of self-satisfaction. You know, you get some kind of a satisfaction, a sense of belongingness by doing all these things, right? That's more important in terms of the gain that we get. Okay, just to give a brief view of what is this STC, it's a non-profit community, it's a non-profit organization. There's no money involved here. The money is only in form of knowledge. That's the only representation of the money. There's no cash flow, right? We have approximately 75, 76 community members from these companies. You can actually see those companies there: SAP, HP, Micro Focus, Tech Mahindra, a lot of companies. You know, I think more and more people as they join, this list is going to increase. And we have members with range of 1 year experience to up to 27 years experience. So that's lot of people with around 10 to 15 years experience gap. And what is more important to us is people with these experience bring these domain expertise. You know, you have networking, storage, cloud, telecom, database, security, you name, right? Healthcare, analytics, mobility. So they bring in, they all work in these domains, so they bring this experience into the community, which is what is the power of collaboration. Okay, now what I want to let you know is the whole idea of is as we are rich in number of people, we are rich in knowledge, right? People bring in that knowledge, and as we grow, as the knowledge grows, there's a lot of sharing that happens, and that's the power of having a community like this, you know. So the whole idea is to grow, and the only way to grow is to get more and more people. So my request is, once you go back after this conference, try to spread the word, get more and more people into the community, so that we all learn from them and they all get to learn from us. Now, the next webinar is most likely, in my opinion, is going to happen in April, as long as we have enough strength. It's going to be a face-to-face conference. It's going to happen in Bengaluru. I'm looking for a venue. I'm talking to a few organizations. One has agreed to actually share their conference rooms to host the STC conference. So I'm in the final stages of discussion. So I've let you know the name of the organization as and when it's decided. The conference timing is approximately 9 to 2. We'll probably start at around 9 o'clock and we'll try to end up at around 2, maybe around 2 o'clock. We will have a keynote address, we'll have presentations, we'll have panel discussions. If possible, we might have a workshop. But more importantly, you will get an opportunity to meet and greet people face to face by attending this conference. So my request is, it is going to happen sometime in April. The date is not finalized. It's going to happen on a Saturday. Echo there. Okay. So my request is fill the survey. I have sent the survey email. I'll put it on WhatsApp. So go through the survey and try to fill it up as possible.
Krishna, we are hearing two.
You're not able to hear me? You're not able to hear me?
And there's an echo.
Can people mute their lines? Just one sec. Are you able to join me? Are you able to hear me?
Good.
Great. Thank you. Okay. I hope there's no echo now. Okay, so I was just letting you know that we're going to have this conference. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be energizing. So please fill in the survey in few days from now, which will help me know the approximate number of people attending. There are some questions that are there in the survey. If you want to make a presentation in the survey, you can actually let me know by filling the survey, or if you want to actually be part of the organizing committee for the conference, let me know. That's also part of the survey. So I would suggest that in 3-4 days, from today, try to fill the survey. It will help me understand the number of people joining in, who is going to present, who is going to be in the part of the organizing committee. It will help me organize and let the company know about the number of people coming in, because there's going to be people from the organization which is sponsoring the conference also joining. So we need to let them know the number of people going to represent the community, so that they will let us know whether they need a bigger conference hall or a smaller conference hall and stuff like that. Okay, that's all I have from my side. So if you have any questions about the community, let me know at the end of the session. Please hold your questions for now. I'm going to actually pass the presentation to Anup. We're going to have an interesting session on panel discussion on TDD. We're going to have we have 3 panel members today. Anup, over to you. I'm going to
Thanks, Krishna.
presentation to you. Well, just give me 1 minute.
Can you hear me well?
Anup, you're able to. Did you get the? Did you?
Yep.
Yes, you're becoming the presenter. 1 minute. You might have to accept something to become the presenter, Anup.
Sure.
Yes. Go ahead, Anup. The stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Krishnan. Are you able to hear me well?
Yes, but you can be a little louder.
Okay. Okay, so is it better now?
Yes.
Okay, so as Krishnan said, so we are going to have the panel discussion on test-driven development, and we have named it Unleashing Test-Driven Development. When we opened this discussion on the test-driven development in the WhatsApp group, which is our main mode of interaction, it was really interesting to see the contributions from each members and the type of questions being asked during that discussion. It went on for a few days, in fact, and in fact we have captured all the notes, and then that as well was used to prepare this panel discussion. So it was a very good discussion, and so in this panel discussion as well, I expect that all the members who are attending the panel discussion and as audience and part of the panel would make it more and more interactive and make it more interesting. So with that, are you able to see my slides?
Yeah, we can see Anup.
Okay, thanks, Vamshi.
Yeah, Anup, we are able to see that.
Okay, so this is going to be the agenda, and since there would be certain members who have not experienced TDD and who might have read about TDD, so we'll start with a quick introduction to TDD, and then we'll go to introducing the panel members, a little bit background about the panel members. It will be really quick. Before starting the panel discussion, we set few guidelines, and then the panel discussion itself, and we'll summarize at the end. Okay, so starting with the quick intro to TDD. So as the name suggests, test-driven development. So here the tests are going to drive the development. It basically means that before even starting to write the functional code, the tests have to be written, and that is what going to drive the entire development. So as you can see in the diagram, so the first step is to write a failing test. So once the failing test is really seen as failing, then the objective is to write or to make the test pass by writing just enough code. So you are not going to make it really polished enough and spend more time on writing the code, but the main objective here is to make the test pass. And once the test is passed and you have sufficient tests, that is when you will start with the refactoring of the code. So where you can add more and more code by ensuring that the once failing test which got passed will never fail. So the refactoring becomes easy, and you get more and more confidence with your code. So that is the gist of test-driven development. So the tests are written first before even starting to write the code. So where are these tests derived from? So that's the main stuff. So you are not really just thinking of what I need to code and write test. So the tests have to be derived from the business application requirements. So look at the business application requirements and you come up with the minimal test, or one test which is focusing on one functional aspect which you want to achieve, and make it see it fail, and then write the sufficient code or just enough code to pass the test. So that's the gist of it. And there are a lot of advantages for TDD, and one of the major one is the early bug notification. So as I said, you are writing enough tests to ensure that you are going the right path. So whenever you are adding more functionality, you are going to have this, and the major step is that all the tests here are automated. So whenever you add a functionality, you are really running all the tests which were made past before. So you will get an idea of, you will be able to find out the bugs very early in the cycle. In fact, as and when you code, you are able to find the bugs. So that's the major one here. And the next one is reduces the time spent on rework. So it's basically associated with the previous one. So as you write code or add more code, you can really tell that whether it is really breaking. So you don't have to really wait for the build to go to the bigger QA cycles to find out that whatever change I made in this part of the code is actually breaking the system. So it's basically helping us upfront in making those changes and understanding that it is not breaking the code. So this shortens the development time to market is the third one, where people really say that, okay, the developers are made to write tests here and they have to write code as well. So there would be definitely a question on whether it is really shortening the development time to market. But on a long run, what we have, what is being seen is that because the bugs are found early, and before even checking in, you are really sure that you are not breaking the code. So all these steps are reducing the rework time and the debugging time, and that as a whole is going to shorten the development time to market. So the fourth one is the confidence of a developer to make any change. So whenever you have a functionality which is there from some time, so as a development engineer, you will have a lot of worries about whether I should go and touch that code or not. So the main problem there is that we don't know how much it is going to break, so and how much test is required. So if the automation is complete and if the test coverage is complete, so you might get more coverage, more confidence. So that exactly is what is achieved by TDD, where the developers understand that if I make a change, the tests are going to really tell me that whether it is going to break the functionality or not. So that is one of the major advantages here. And the last two are like good for teamwork. So members can get into shoes of other members and quickly contribute. That's mainly because each test actually is going to help you understand the code itself. So you can really look at the test and understand that what is the code you have written for. So it's easy for any other developer to get into others' shoes and then start working. The last one is good for developers as debugging time is reduced with more and more tests. Okay. And yeah, so there are a lot of myths on TDD, and one of the major stuff is the projects take longer because of the additional test code that has to be written. So this I slightly touched upon in the previous slide. So when the initial stuff which you think about TDD is that the developers have to write tests along with the code. So that's an additional time-consuming activity, and that is why this myth is there. So we'll see during the panel discussion, we'll have multiple questions around this. So we'll see how this myth can be broken. Another stuff is writing unit test is difficult and complex. So in fact, that is mainly because of the tests are written after the code is developed. So here, one of the stuff here is that tests are written upfront, and that makes it easier is what is being seen in the industry. Third one is you have to write all tests before you start the code. So that is another stuff which is considered as a myth because people think that the number of tests you have to write would be like too many, and when do you start really coding? So that's another myth which is prevalent. Not everything can be tested with unit tests, therefore TDD cannot be used. So here it's basically TDD mostly talk about the unit test, and so that is where this myth is coming from. So unit test itself cannot sufficiently test the quality of the product. So that is where this myth is coming from. Another stuff is TDD claims to evolve from the test, and so there is no need for architectural design. So that is absolutely not correct, and we'll see how this is important in TDD in the panel discussion. So yeah, this is about the process itself. So TDD is considered as too much time consuming to implement, so business team would never approve, and business team would never approve or allow the developers to write tests. So when the release has to happen, the coding is more important. Basically, the product has to go, so it has to have the functional code. So they won't be allowed to write tests. So these are all things which are at least thought about. Like management also will have this in their mind, and developers also will have this in mind. But we'll see like how these things are actually happening in practical. Okay, so those are the three slides which I thought will give you a quick intro to the TDD. So let's get into the panel discussion, and starting with that, we'll start with the intro to panel members. Any questions on that, on those three slides up to now? Okay, so you can post your questions to chat window as well. So I'll proceed in any case. Okay, so the first panel member I want to introduce is Vamshi Krishna. And hi Vamshi, welcome to the panel discussion.
Hi, hello.
So Vamshi is a lead architect of Zenworks, and so this is Zenworks is one of the leading endpoint management products in the market. So he works for Micro Focus. And he has over 15 years of experience working on various technologies on Java and .NET stacks. So he's an excellent presenter, so which I personally know, and the way he considers testing as an important role in the quality of the overall product is really thrilling for me to work with Vamshi. So he's very passionate about performance engineering and a strong evangelist of test-driven development. So I would say Vamshi is one of the major reason why trust-driven development is being taken up and is successful in ZenWorks. So thanks Vamshi for joining the panel discussion, and
thank you, Anu. My pleasure. And thanks for those kind words during introduction. I hope to live up to it.
Yep. So next panel member is Selvaraj Natarajan, and he also works for Micro Focus, and he's been with Micro Focus for 10+ years, and in IT industry for about 20 years. I get a lot of noise now. Okay. So if you're not talking, please mute your side so that others can see the person who is talking. Okay. So Selvaraj, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. So Selva is currently playing the role of engineering group head for an endpoint management product. It's the same ZenWorks, and he is also a very core member of implementing TDD in the product development. And so the product group has been practicing the TDD for about 2 years now. And so with these two experienced panel members, we would be able to learn a lot of things, is what I'm thinking. And welcome, Selva. So
thank you, Anup, and hi to all the joiners of this webinar as well.
Okay, so let's move to the next one. Yeah, so this is myself, Anup Kumar Rajan, and I will be acting as the moderator here. So I do not have any real experience with the TDD, so I also would be learning TDD along with all other audiences. And I have been trying to push this TDD, so this is the right time for me to be a moderator and ask such questions to understand the challenges and stuff. So to introduce myself, like I am the test architect for Access Manager product from Micro Focus. And so I have been working with Micro Focus, previously called as Novel, since 15+ years. I started working with NetWare in the TCP/IP stack, and now focusing on identity, access, and security portfolio. So I'm passionate about testing and all aspects of testing, and I am really focusing on bringing in more and more effectiveness and optimization into testing. So these are the members who are going to drive the panel discussion, and let me go to the very few guidelines. So Krishna was talking about panel discussion might go for 1 hour 15 minutes. So I thought we will conclude now. It's 10:35, and I thought we will conclude in an hour, and we'll have a summary of it, and Krishna will have another summary at the end of the webinar. So as a moderator, I would take the responsibility of timekeeping, and so audience, all members from audience are free to ask questions, and please request you to please make it more and more interactive. So please ask questions. Please feel free to ask any number of questions. And so to have a check on time, so I'm thinking like we will have the time to answer one question can be restricted to not more than 5 minutes. So that's the cap which I have put. So let's see how things go. And the panel member can also ask questions to another panel member, and audience can ask questions through the chat window or through voice. Okay, so with that, let's start the panel discussion. Any questions till now on guidelines or anything?
Yeah, no, one quick thing. This is Krishnan. So you're saying that at any point in time while the panel discussion is in progress, audience can pitch in questions, right? So there's no restrictions there. Right? That's what I said.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. So since
Okay.
we are not face to face, I thought to make it more interactive and make it more attentive, I thought the contribution from the audience would really help.
Yeah.
And I would try my level best to keep the time. So let's see.
Thank you, Anup.
Okay, and let's start the panel discussion. So since this group is basically having more and more testers, so I thought we will start with a question on what is the role of a tester. So in TDD, so developers start to write tests. So that's what I mentioned in the quick introduction about TDD. And so developers, before starting to write a functional code, they will start to write tests. So what is the role of a tester really in TDD? So that's the first question. So I would probably pick Vamsi to answer this question. Vamsi?
Yeah, thanks, Anu. I think, I will share my personal experience here rather than giving a direct answer. So in our group, when we started development of ZenWorks in the new architecture, we always followed black box or manual testing. We didn't have a lot of UT automation at all. Around 4 years back, as the industry started adopting DevOps and other practices, we moved on and we said UT automation is going to be a key element in ensuring the quality of the deliverable. So, Anup, actually I'm hearing a lot of noise from the line. I'm not sure if it is my case.
Yeah, now it's fine, right?
Yeah, I think, Vamsi, while you were talking, we didn't have any problem. We were able to hear you.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, so we started off writing unit test automation code about 4 years ago. And then I met one of the testers from our attachment group, which was the parent company that acquired our company. His name was John Smith, and he was my guru in terms of adopting test-driven development. I learned a lot from his experiences, etc. So he was a hardcore tester, and apparently his evangelism was a cause of an event that happened in his own personal life, where he attended a conference, and in that conference somebody questioned him on saying most of the breakthrough technologies in software industry came from the developer community. What did the testers do for the community? So that question basically caused him to explore how a tester can really go and change the way things are built. And his aha moment came when he discovered that TDD is something where the testers can play a predominantly a very, very high quality role, rather than just being a dormant group trying to find bugs in an already developed code. So he then started evangelizing it. He learned a lot. He then came over to our office in Bangalore. We had some discussions. The early trainings happened. And actually, he kind of changed my perspective towards how to approach testing. Because the legacy way of doing things is you get requirements, you go ahead and build the software to meet the requirements, then you start testing and finding bugs. And you will never be confident that you have found all the bugs, because it is fear-based in some sense. In spite of having a lot of experience in your testing organization, it's always, you can never go and say, we have covered everything that we wanted to cover. Whereas a test-driven development is exactly opposite of what we do there, which is try to, identify the tests first. So it's a defect prevention strategy than defect finding strategy. And according to me, testers have better DNA in terms of finding faults and what can go wrong with any software system. And that exactly comes in as a great value addition in any kind of test-driven development implementation, where you look at the requirements and before actually trying to jump and build the software, try to understand what can go wrong when we build this software, or what are the things that are usually missed when we build these kind of softwares. So that gives us an ability to identify tests upfront in the system, and as developers write code, they are only making sure that they write code just enough to make those test cases pass, which means they are not writing a line extra or a line lesser. And this will give us confidence, and we will slowly come out of that fear-based testing, and you will become more and more white box organization where the tests are there to cover each and every line of code, and then you can actually go to 100% confidence level saying now bugs will not be there in our software because there are tests to cover each and every line of code. If there is something wrong, it has to be outside of code, which means nothing. So that is the, I know maybe I have taken long time, but what I would say is in this model, a tester has a greater role than a developer, and I strongly believe the significance comes with the tester's participation. Yeah, that's all I had, Anup, on that.
Thanks, Vamshi. So, do you mean to say that the tester also would contribute in writing unit tests, or it's about discussion with the developer?
No, so here there are some myths I want to clarify. So test-driven development is not about just writing unit tests, because any product requires levels of tests. That is, you need unit tests that cover the classes and the smallest units of the code. You need integration tests to see how individual modules integrate with each other. And you need large tests or system tests which will try to validate non-functional aspects, etc., etc. Beyond that, you also need manual testing. I don't think that you can ever say manual testing is not required, because there is a certain amount of humanness that we bring to the table that identifies issues with usability, the responsiveness of the application, and the number of clicks required, or is it irritating for the end user in terms of perception of the software. So the certain amount of manual testing is definitely required in my opinion, plus the exploratory part of things which cannot be automated always. So if you see, this is a test pyramid. You need all these different layers to help you qualify that the product is of very good quality. In that sense, unit testing comes, and usually many people describe this as a test pyramid, where they say you should have large number of unit tests, and as you go up in the pyramid, you need to have smaller and smaller, larger tests, and the minimal test should be that of manual nature, right? From that sense, but then many people, when they talk about TDD, they only talk about unit tests, and that is wrong, because all the tests are important, and you need all these to be performed to certify a product. And as I speak, the industry is changing and going into a transformation where the roles of developers and testers are slightly merging, if not eliminating each other. They are slightly merging. That means there are developers who should do some amount of testing, and there are testers who write automation and should understand code better to be able to become a very good tester. And for example, in our organization, when we started implementing it 2 years back, most testers felt very nervous about the introduction, if their job role will be diminished, and etc., etc. But over these 2 years, life has changed for them for better. And right now, I have not come across a single case where somebody had left our organization because of TDD. In fact, they are able to add much more value now. There are a lot of testers who have learned Java, who have learned how to write unit test cases, and they're helping write those test cases. There are a large number of testers who still haven't crossed that bridge, but still are able to identify a lot of test cases and are able to automate at the highest level instead of getting into the code levels and bringing much more value addition. So there is a lot of importance for the roles here. I don't know if it answered the question, but that's my attempt.
Thanks, Vamshi. So that was excellently put together, and you covered a lot of things, in fact. So what I have heard is in one of my other project teams is that so some of the testers are able to contribute to the functional code itself to add more testability to the product. So since the tests are covering really the entire functionality to ensure that it's not going to be broken, so the testers feel more confident in adding a little bit of a hook which can increase the testability of the product. So excellent. So thanks Vamsi. So let's move to the next question. I hear a lot of noise again.
See, I typically mute the whole audience and then unmute and mute. I'll do it again.
Okay, I think it's better now. Let's proceed. So the second question, what I have done is I have a certain number of questions created and listed. So some of the questions would be already getting covered in the previous answer. So we'll, based on the answers and the relevance of the question, we'll take up those questions or else we'll skip those questions. So they are there in the slides, so you will be able to see those questions. Okay, the second question is, developers writing tests before even starting to code takes far more time for the build to reach the testers. So how are we making the release faster with TDD? So I'll probably pick Selva to answer this question.
Yeah, thanks, Anup. As we covered in one of the myths that the TDD will bring in slowness in the system. That is a myth. And as you have rightly called this question here, it's an initial thinking from the developers and testers, in fact the management team members, that TDD means we have to write the test first or automate the test first and then write the code, and this will bring in lots of slowness in delivering the testable components to the test engineers in the release cycle, and thus this is going to add more time to the current release cycle. For example, if we are taking X time to deliver set of features today, if we start delivering in the TDD model, will it take X plus some time? So the answer to that question directly is there will be some amount of initial cost in the initial delivery from the developer to the tester. But the fact that we are delivering the code for what is required to be working, I mean we write the code after writing the test cases, which means we are writing the code only that is what is required to be delivered or returned for the given set of features, and then delivered to the testers. The number of issues found by the test engineers or the later cycles of validations and verifications will be much lesser. So in the overall release cycle, we will possibly put in some, maybe say for example 10% extra effort for the development or developers to deliver the pieces to the testers. But in the overall release cycle, you would have saved much more than this 10% cost. So in essence, in fact, TDD will make it faster because we will not find so many issues later in the development cycle. So this is the experience that we have had so far when we were trying to do TDD. And then the fact that this is the myth today in the industry, lots of management team members might think and feel this is going to add more time, we will not be following it. So the success of TDD is very much within the management team members also, where the person who is going to drive TDD in the given organization, they have to ensure that the management team members are educated on this TDD process and they are very much aligned with this process. Only then we will be able to make TDD working in our organization. So yeah, in summary, TDD will bring in some additional cost, maybe 10% or so in the initial development cycle to deliver the features to the test engineers, so finally to do the end-to-end testing. But the overall quality impact and then having lesser issues found in the later cycles will ensure that we have faster releases in TDD. This is what we have experienced in the last 2 years. Anup, did I answer the question? Anything else you would like to add here?
Yeah, thanks a lot. So that's excellent. So I had this same perception. So you have put it very well. So that's good.
Any questions from the audience on this front? We'll be able to answer.
Yep. So any questions from the audience?
Or anybody tried this, or they were talking about it and they had challenges in getting everybody aligned, anything of that kind?
So again, I'm reiterating. So if you are not comfortable in asking the question or voice, you can post your questions in the chat window. We'll take it up as and when it comes. Okay, so I think for now there is no question from the audience. Let's move to the third question then. Thanks, Silva.
Hello, this is Naresh here.
Okay.
I had a question. It might seem very basic. It's like a basic question, but see, generally there's a tendency in the development team to push tests to the end, right? So, what are the challenges that the panel members have faced while trying to convince developers to write unit tests before they actually start writing code?
Yeah, so maybe Anup, I will take the question.
Yes, sure. Go ahead, Silva.
So, yeah, Naresh, that's I think a very good question. That's very important for all of us to understand how this scales up when we try and implement. Yeah, developers, when we tried to bring in this process change, even developers had the mindset that, yeah, I will take more time. I can't write the test code first because I am used to write the working functional pieces first and then deliver to the test engineers. How can I think about writing test cases first and all that? So there was a big challenge in getting all the developers to get aligned to the fact that they have to think about the test cases for the given feature, automate those test cases, and then go for the functional code to be written. So we had challenges and we had workshops, and the other as part of TDD process, as we all know, before even writing the test code, the entire team sits together and then understands the given feature from the respective leaders who are giving the features to the team, the product manager and the architects and the leads, and then together as a team they identify the test cases. Where it is mostly driven by the test senior folks, whereas everybody adds to the test case identification process. In this way, we have all the test cases identified, and then we have a design in place, high-level design in place for the given feature. Now the developers can easily correlate for the given design, for the given test cases, what test cases should I write. So for that, they had to be trained well. So the challenge was in getting them trained and coming out of this mindset. So we had some kind of training and workshops for the developers in writing the UT automation for the given use case or a test case, and then making it failing, and then look for writing a code to make it pass. So this is still, if you ask me, Naresh, this is still not successfully done 100% in our organization. We can say about 70–80% of the engineers are doing this. 20–30% are still not there because maybe they would have joined us in the recent past, or they have been still trying to come out of the situation. So that is still an ongoing challenge. But I would say as long as we reach about 70–80% of the developers getting in there in the short period of time, the remaining people will fall in line. So this is my experience in the TDD implementation with the developers. Does that answer the question, Naresh?
Thanks. It does answer the question in part, but I just had few more doubts, but maybe I'll wait for some more time before I ask them. It's more about how some more implementation aspects, but I will wait for maybe the
Sure, Naresh. Sure, Naresh. Yeah, so let's see whether some of them are getting covered in the questions. You can always ask the questions anytime, in fact. Okay, so let's move to the third question. Thanks, Naresh, for that question. It was good. It was aligned to the real problem. So basically the point which came out is the developers' mindset changes is the biggest challenge. So that looks to be the ongoing challenge as well. So let's move to the third question. Any other questions from the things in the chat window? No, I don't think anything else. Okay, so yeah, question 3. So I think this question is partly answered by Vamshi in the first question answer. So let's see. So TDD calls for more and more automation. So what will happen to the manual testers? Do you think manual testers have a role in TDD? So Vamshi, do you want to elaborate a little more than you answered in the first question?
Yeah, sure, Anup. See, I think as the software industry is maturing, I think every role has to mature and try to think about what is going to be value addition of that role T plus 5 years from now, because we are currently aware that Microsoft and Google are working on projects where to produce code also we can use artificial intelligence and machine learning. Then the same question can come up saying, are developers irrelevant when such a thing happens, and if machine starts producing code, what will happen to the role of developers? So in the same way, I think world has moved on, and today if you ask me, a manual tester is more without having skills of automation, they are becoming very less in numbers in terms of, but that does not take away the ability to catch bugs, the ability to do some of the human aspect related fault finding in the software that we have write, because the Googles and Facebooks of the world are successful because they have excellent usability, they understand the customer and the use case very well, and they present the data in such a way that you don't have to search for your information. So such a kind of thing, if only developers are there in this world, will not be possible. You need to have that hat of how to use the software and how to use it in the right way. What will make it more useful will all be the value additions that a very good manual tester brings to the table. But having said that, I think people have to understand that only doing manual testing is not going to be completely sufficient, and hence they need to see how that value addition can be translated. And it could be like Selva pointed in the earlier meeting. So whenever we have any story or any requirement that is getting implemented, the very first meeting that we do is called test-driven design discussion meeting. In that meeting, both the developers and testers sit together, look at the requirement and draw on the board how to go about building this particular software. It's more or less like a design meeting. And in that discussion, when we involve testers, we started breaking that bridge. They are able to contribute a lot in terms of how to find common issues much early and make sure that failing test cases are added for them so that developers don't run into it as we start developing. Take any example of any website you are building. If you take a login screen, when developers write code for it, they typically write code such that it works for the positive cases where username and password. If there is a mistake, the password gives an error. That's all somebody would do. But the moment a tester is there and we do a TDD discussion, they will think about what all things can go wrong, like special character support, what can be the maximum password that somebody can set, whether it supports special characters other than English. Typically in our traditional model, once the login form is coded, and then it goes into a build, all these issues used to come from testers as bugs, and there will be a cycle where the developer fixes them and then it goes back to regression. This is how it used to happen. But in TDD, when these two people are put together in charge of building it from test-driven way, all these test cases that can go wrong are identified upfront. And as the code is getting developed, you know that the special characters are handled, you know that internationalization is handled, you know that the maximum character supported is handled and all that. Now, so the tester has definitely added the value addition that is required. I just took a simple example, but it can be extrapolated into any mega system where if things can be prevented at the time of development, I think that is the fastest way to catch bugs. And so testers do have a role, and manual testers in that sense bring that value addition.
Thanks, Vamshi. Can you hear me? I did something to my mic, so I just want to confirm that I'm audible.
Yes, Anup, you're audible.
Okay. So thanks, Vamshi. So that was a very good answer. And so one thing which I noted is test cases which can go wrong are really identified upfront. And the manual testers and all the testers have a very good role in identifying that upfront and preventing the defects which might come in the later point of the cycle. So excellent, Vamshi.
So Anup, I have one question, a quick observation. Sure. Is that so once you're saying that as far as TDD is concerned, there has to be an excellent collaboration between developers and testers. So people have to learn to collaborate well. They need to actually do a lot of pair programming or pair working together. So it means that, from Selva's point of view, also from a manager's role, is to ensure that this collaboration happens in an extremely professional way so that maximum benefits of TDD can be extracted. Am I right?
Yes, Krishnan, well said. I think the TDD is a process that brings a Scrum team as a real Scrum team, breaking those silos of I am a developer, hence I do this, I am a tester, hence I will not do this. Those silos are broken in a very seamless way. So in that sense, TDD is an answer for many problems that we used to face in legacy ways of doing things. So it brings both the testers and developers. And one more problem, if I may add, it solves is in the past, the developers used to be busy in the beginning of the sprint or the beginning of the implementation. And once they deliver a build for testers, that's when the busy time for the testers used to start. And many times, if this question is raised, the answer will be like, okay, yeah, I mean the testers in the beginning of the sprint are usually busy with something that slipped from the previous sprint and so on and so forth. But in a real Scrum, when you take any sprint, the work has to end at the previous sprint and it should not spill over. And hence, by plan, the process should make sure that both the developers and testers are loaded equally in the whole span of the sprint, and neither they should have an extreme load at the beginning for developers, nor it should have extreme load for the testers at the end. So TDD actually elegantly solves that problem, because both the roles will start from day one, identify the failure test cases, and as the tests are getting built, so will be the code that is getting built to make sure those pass and they go hand in hand. And hence everybody will have a very good work-life balance too. So, so I think that collaboration is needed, and automatically it is over a period of time it becomes natural. No manager needs to get involved because the process itself will take care of that harmony.
It's interesting to know about this even helps in the work-life balance.
Anup, I had a question, a point to add on this question.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So again, on the same lines as we have been discussing so far, I think all of us would have been reading the change happening in the IT industry, even in the other automation industry, that the automation is taking jobs away, right? You would have read this news quite a few times in the last few months. The companies have been sending people off because the automation is taking in a big way. So TDD is a transformation which transforms everybody, including the manual testers, to become automation engineers. But for TDD, the testers who are doing manual testing only today may find it difficult to transform on their own later on if they have to do that in wherever there is a need. Whereas when the organization follows TDD, everybody understands that we have to transform our test engineers, even developers, to do automation. And there is time given for everybody to learn, understand, and transform themselves in a systematic manner. So that way, TDD is a great opportunity for the manual testers to transform themselves to become automation engineers, because that is the way the whole world is moving. So in a way, I would say TDD is a boon for all the engineers, be developers or testers, to transform themselves to the next level of IT, I would say software development and delivery aspects.
We have a question in the chat from Aruna. So let's take one question here. While development team is busy in writing test cases and coding, how will be the testing teams occupied with, or what will be the testing teams occupied with? Any specific task for testing team at that point? Great point.
And I see the thing in the previous question when you asked how will TDD save time, and this question are somewhat related. So what used to happen in old way of doing things is that if developers start writing test cases and writing unit test cases, the test cases that they are testing at the unit level And some of the testing that happens by the manual testing or automation testing at the highest levels used to overlap. So going back into the example that I talked about, login form, username, password thing, the fact that if username and password is already all those special characters, everything is handled at the unit test level, does anybody in this team feel that you will have to validate every build that comes out to make sure that you will have all these kind of things? Or would it be sufficient to have one big username and password with all the kinds of permutations and combinations, and that one single test case is sufficient to validate the sanity? If the answer is yes to the second part, which means that you're actually taking away some of the manual efforts that are needed in the larger test cases, that is, you need to install a build, you need to make sure the software is configured before you can execute these things. Now, you will remove those extra ways that are there in a traditional legacy system. So those get pushed down to the code at unit and component levels. Now the point is, so the role of the testers in the organization is to make sure that all these test cases are getting done by the developers. And so while they are building those unit level test cases, the testers in our organization right now are actually working on building automation at the end-to-end level. Now, instead of building automation that is like that's going to cover all these small permutations and combinations, the automation that our test teams are building is actually worried about scale, is worried about non-functional aspects like performance, reliability, those kind of things. So the things that every test engineer that I talked to who had craving to do these things but never got time, they're getting time to do those things. So while the code is getting developed and simple functional cases are handled at the unit test level, the non-functional scale, load, performance, reliability, those areas of the code are now being focused on by our test organization, which means they are also building a lot of code along with the developed code. And now that the initial TDD discussion has happened, they are aware of the interfaces, they are aware of the API that is going to be developed, so they can actually build automation to blast it with like thousands of threads and see how the code performs, when such scale is simulated. So that will not happen overnight. It's a journey because there is some learning curve required in terms of adoption, but it has actually helped, and we are an example for how our testers have transformed from being idle in the beginning of the sprint by being equally or maybe more busy than developers right now as we are in 2 years of the journey after implementation. Yeah, that's all I had.
Thanks, Vamsi. So, excellent question, Aruna.
Hey, Anup.
Yeah,
Neeraj, yes. Yeah. Hey, Vamsi, so one question is that we are adopting the TDD, so how much testing is required post TDD implementation? Does it reduce the overall release cycle, or still the time taken to release a product is same, or what is your experience in that?
So like Selva pointed out earlier, see, the overall release time, if you take, will be reduced because first of all we are eliminating the overlap between manual testing and unit testing and whatever happens near the code. So the testers are focused more on much larger things. Second thing is it's a defect prevention strategy. So the time that you spent in filing bugs, regressing them, and going back and forth, doing the rework is also eliminated. So overall the deliverable will be more quality. And in terms of knowledge, the testers will be equally knowledgeable about the system just like developers. So it gives much more added advantage in terms of finding those exploratory bugs that we usually miss out on. So my experience has been that it has helped us, what used to be 18-month long releases into a 6-month or a 4-month type releases. So it was the same product that I am trying to reference. So the baseline is the same. And in fact, the code has become much more bigger because we are adding features, but we are able to cut short the release cycle Yeah, I wouldn't say only TDD is the reason. It has been one of the reasons.
Okay.
Thanks, Vamshi. Thanks, Neeraj, for that question.
Yeah.
So, if you are not talking, please request you to please mute your phone. Okay, so we have one question in the chat. So let's take one question from my question bank, and then we come back to audience question again. Yeah, so this as well, we covered a little bit of thing in terms of how the developer's mindset is changed. So this question is not about us a total of engineering. So what are the management challenges in terms of implementing TDD for the engineering? So engineering, when I say, it could be the developers, testers, and developers and testers. So in terms of holding them to the project, all of those. So can I give this to Stella?
Yeah, sure, I will take it. So thanks for that. So I have covered the developer mindset earlier in the previous question anyway. So a summary of that is that, yeah, developers would not be comfortable to start writing the test automation and then start writing the actual functional code. So that was a challenge, and the consistent and I would say persistent focus in getting them get into that kind of mindset is the key in getting developers get into the TDD and then start doing it in the way that we expect them to do. From the tester's perspective, as we covered in the question number 2, whether they would feel that their job is at stake, whether they would have a role to play when we have TDD coming in. So the challenge was in having them feel secure, saying that yes, the automation is going to be the way, and you will be trained, you will be coached, you will be given opportunity and time to learn to do automation in whatever way you can do. And we will still have manual testing for some more time because we cannot switch over from manual to automation overnight. It's going to be a journey, and you are going to be part of a journey. We will support you and guide you. So with that kind of assurance, and then trainings and workshops, and then when they were trying to do the actual automation and along with the developers, having handholding by the respective technical people from development and then test leads team, we were able to get test engineers also buy into the TDD. And more than that, the TDD discussions, which Vamsi also called out, where the entire the developer and tester community of the given feature team sits together and then talks about what test cases we have to identify, and they were having major test cases to be written there. So yeah, so the developer was taken care of to an extent, and testers were given the assurance and the security. That's what they were feeling. Whether they would be in a good position in this TDD environment. Now also the fact that the industry is moving towards a more and more automation way of doing things, and we were able to give them the perspective that this is going to be a journey and transformation journey, and if we are all part of it, we are all going to be the winners in this journey. So that helped us. The other challenge was in having the management team members understand, align, and support these engineers when they go through this change. Transformation change, whatever you want to call it as. So the major challenge was some of the managers were not aligned, thinking that this is not going to help us in any way because everybody has to learn automation, everybody has to follow this process, everybody has to start doing it right way. Till then, should we do the old way of development and testing, or how do we transform? So the discussion with the management team members was that you will have to be a guide here than a worried person. Watch how the developers and testers transform. If you see a challenge, either in the behavior part or in the knowledge part or in getting the tools used in the right way and bring it up to the next level, we will be able to solve it quickly. So it was a very collaborative teamwork between developers, testers, managers, and the senior leaders of the organization, so that we can get it passing. Again, it wasn't happening for us in the first release. After the first release was over, we looked at how did we do in TDD. We were maybe 10-20% of what we were supposed to do. Then we all grouped together, reviewed again where things went right, where things did not go right. And then everybody from testers and then developers had shared their experiences and the challenges, and we one by one we were working on them. to get them resolved. So over a period of 2 or 3 releases, we can say we have achieved this transformation to a greater extent where we can say we are successful today. Yeah, it has been a challenge in different roles perspective. And then the other aspect was having the tools like Jenkins dashboard and other tools being maintained over a period of time. We may have automation done that is running, but is it running every day? Is there any failure? Is there anybody looking into that? We write 10 test cases for the current user story and then make it pass, and then we write another user story in the next sprint. Do we look at what we wrote in the last sprint, whether all this automation is passing or not, whether people are watching it or not, are they fixing it when we break them? So these are the challenges in terms of getting TDD implemented in an organization. And the last part what I told is still a challenge for us, where whatever we have written so far as automation, whether we have them all running for every other build that we make for the product, it is 80% of them are passing, 20% of them are failing, which means they are broken in the latest code changes. As Vamsi called out, that is what we want to get as a benefit. So after we write a new code for a new feature, are we breaking the existing features? That's where the automation that we have done is very useful, and we should be running it on every build that we are creating for the product, and we should be watching it very closely, and whenever we break the test case, either fix the test case or fix the code so that the test case passes. So this is the transformation challenges, I would say some of them that we have faced.
Thanks, Selva. So one point which I would like to add here is, so at least in my project teams, whichever project I have been working, so what I have seen is that the engineers keep commenting or complaining that they don't get enough time to automate. So when the release is happening, the focus goes on to really to somehow do it manually and then release it, and we don't get enough time to automate. So TDD actually calls for automation, and management is actually investing more and more time on the test engineers to train about automation and giving more time to automate, and it's basically done much upfront than waiting for the build to come later and stuff like that. So I think it's a good thing for a tester to get enough time to do their automation, and whoever is more passionate about automation actually it's really a good process to be in. So that's just one point which I wanted to add. Okay, so I think we have one question, 2 questions in fact, in the chat window. So how does TDD work when a team works in Agile? Some thoughts. That's a question from Manoj. Vamshi, do you want to take that?
No, yeah, I think TDD and Agile are more or less sisters, because it's an offshoot of extreme programming. TDD is an offshoot of extreme programming, which is an element of iterative development thing. So in that sense, TDD is very, very favorable to Agile practices, and it is in fact complementary. There is nothing that I have come across in TDD that contradicts what we do in Agile. In fact, TDD is also about building smaller units, make sure they are working fine, and then integrate to make them bigger and bigger and make them the overall system. Agile also, in some sense, is building that. You build small stories iteratively, and as you iterate, you evolve the whole overall system instead of trying to build a big monolith and then trying to take a large amount of time. So in that sense, and in my own network, when I interact with some of my friends in other companies, almost every company that is practicing TDD is actually doing it along with Scrum and Agile or with Lean practices. So in that sense, they're complementary. If you have any specific question, maybe I can take it, but in general, I don't see any conflict of interest here between TDD and Agile.
I think you also told about the collaboration required and the tester getting into the developer's shoes, and so that's a basic requirement of Agile, in fact, and that really complements here in TDD, right? So that's even more good.
Yeah, right.
So we have one more question. Thanks, Vamshi. So do we have some success story to learn from the from with TDD around products having multiple underlying dependent services and web-based integration test. So who wants to take this question?
I can take it, or maybe I'm talking more. Selva can take it if he wants.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, so both of us are from same product and have similar experience. So ZenWorks actually is a 10-year-old product. It's a web-based infrastructure, and we have a lot of web services. There's a lot of web technologies used in terms of the management console. All the clients talk to the servers on web-based protocols like REST and so. The code base was also huge because it's a 10-year-old product. So when we started off, it was initially challenging in terms of trying to adopt TDD for a lot of our legacy code because they don't have corresponding test cases. But as we took a stance of trying to force fit this into the process, in the hindsight, I think it's a very good decision because as we started building stuff, I think the code changes were can be categorized into 70% of the time we are writing new code, 30% of the time we are going and changing the legacy code. And as and when we were touching the legacy code, those areas we also took some extra time to add test cases for them. As we go, more and more test cases got automated, and I think the overall experience has been extremely useful. And today we have about a huge number of test cases or test banks that got built over a period of time, and which we can run to make sure that as we add new features, we are not breaking the old stuff. So I think honestly, TDD is a little bit of tough nut to chew if you are having legacy code and working on a legacy project, or if you are using technologies like C, C++, where the amount of availability of test automation frameworks is a little bit on the lower side. But if you are working on web and Java and JavaScript, Angular, those kind of technologies, it's a perfect neat fit, and you'll get a lot of ecosystem support.
Assumption. I think this is randomly typed, I think. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So, yeah, so this is about TDD says code only just enough to pass the test. And these tests are basically written by the same developers. So how are we basically bringing in the quality angle, which, so normally when you say about the code and the testing, so right, the code is written by one person and the same person should not really test the code is what we always think and we always preach. So here the unit test as well as the code are written by the same developer. So how are we really bringing in the quality angle?
So, I mean, I think there is some amount of myth in the question itself, and I clarified in the first question also. TDD is not about just unit test cases. TDD is the overall test strategy for the feature that you are building, includes unit component integration, non-functional, all the test cases. So, if at all there is any unit test that the developer is doing, I think I personally, at the unit test level, I don't think it requires a huge difference of hats. I mean, I don't buy that, somebody who is doing development of a class and the unit test for the class has to be different, because I personally don't buy that that should be the case. So even if that were to be taken as a case, and if somebody buys that argument, in some of our teams, a lot of testers are now participating and helping developers in the unit tests also. So the other way to look at it is the testers being knowledgeable about unit test case will actually avoid running similar test cases at the highest levels. So that is also going to help them in a way. I hope I answered the question, or maybe convoluted, but.
Yeah, so one additional step would be, so testers participating in unit test is really gonna make them understand that, okay, it's not redone again in their other tests. And even maybe this is another way to break down their system test cases into unit test cases as well. And when you said about the pyramid, so we were talking about more the number of unit tests and more the better. So if you are going to really write a system test case, and if we have some unit test cases which can be broken down into and then executed at upfront, so that is always going to reduce the defect cost in all ways. So that's where I think the testers participating in unit test is going to really help, and that itself will bring a bit of a quality angle, I think.
Yeah. Correct.
Thanks, Vamshi. Any other questions from the audience?
This is Naresh here.
Hi, Krishna.
I have one more question.
Sorry.
Yeah, please go ahead, Naresh.
Okay. So I just wanted to understand how does it affect dev QA picture. Like, so what basically happens is, like, in typical organizations we have more dev and less QA. So, and as people are mentioning in this process, right, like dev QA pair up and start writing tests and automating them. So does it mean that we have to increase the number of testers in the organization, or how did you guys actually manage to pull it through without doing that?
Okay, so I'll take this question.
Yeah.
This not necessarily about increasing the number of testers in the organization. As Vamshi had been calling out in a couple of contexts, that the line between the developers and the testers in the TDD model is slowly merging, and which means we don't need to really hire more testers or more developers. We need to have both of them trained on both sides, where developers try and understand that they have to think from the test case identification perspective and then write the code for the tests that are already there. And testers try and learn to write DUT automation wherever they can, or the end-to-end automation or performance scale-related automation, and then get there. So the whatever roles we have had before TDD are still the same in terms of their responsibilities, but there are some overlaps in terms of who can, when they work together, they can complement each other in some areas. At the same time, we don't necessarily have to look at the ratio of developers and testers in any organization. Yes, today it is like, maybe as you say, 2 developers, 1 tester, or 3 developers, 1 tester, things like that in different organizations. But that doesn't have to be changed. Even today, we haven't changed anything on those lines in the last 2 years since we have been implementing TDD, and we are seeing good amount of overlap between these two responsibilities in certain teams, where we can say some of the developers have started writing some functional code as well. So doesn't mean that the testers will become developers and vice versa. But then yes, there is no need to look at bringing in more testers in this context, because that may not solve any problem here. Hope I answered your question.
Thanks a lot.
Naresh, I think your voice was jumbled.
I was just saying thanks. I'm satisfied with the answer.
Okay, thank you. Someone else also started to ask a question. Can you please solve that?
Yeah. Hi, Krishna. This is Tina. So I had a question. It is very much aligned to your last discussion that was there, the last point in question 4. So this is more about trying to practice TDD and prioritizing it. So say if a team is working on a legacy product which is years old, and we have found that the existing unit test coverage is very low, even in the existing functionality. So we have to prioritize covering that as well. Along with that, we have to write new code and align it to the TDD model maybe. So how do you see a challenge coming in here, and how does the management be able to tackle this and handle both hand to hand probably? So our challenge here is we want to increase the existing code coverage of the regression areas as well as practice TDD going forward.
Question is not for Krishnan, I guess, it's for the panel. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent question, however. So I think that this question Krishnan had passed on to me in some form, and it is there in the question bank as well. So thanks for bringing it up. Vamshi, do you want to take that question?
And yeah, I can take it, but there is also a management angle here. I let Selva talk about it. But by and large, he told earlier also, the legacy software management and TDD is a decent challenge, is a well acknowledged challenge in the world of TDD, because the legacy code is already tested, it's already customers are using it. Is there any business value to go and add some more test cases there? So that would be the usual question for any investment, right? So in that sense, but then it's a journey. So I think what management should help the team members do or engineers do is that as they're going and touching the legacy code, obviously they're going and touching something that is going to impact the existing customers for existing features. Hence, there is always a business benefit to go and automate some of the things that are getting modified. So management have to acknowledge that, and we will have to additionally add a 10% or a 20% time for our estimates whenever a legacy code is involved, so that people get that additional time to go and add those legacy test cases. In the long run, what it will happen is, as you build this in a phased approach, you'll start seeing that you will build a very good test bank where the legacy code is also getting covered. In our case, our management, including Selva, have been very, very helpful in allowing that to happen. So we had some kind of guidelines. Exact numbers are irrelevant, but guidelines on how much extra time we would add to go and automate some of the legacy code that is modified, and I think after 4 or 5 releases now we feel that we have pretty good coverage. So that's something that, I mean, it will be a case by case basis, because as you go to different products, the amount of change in legacy code can vary, but you can apply the same guidelines and see how you can achieve it in a phased manner. Selva, you want to add anything? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think also you covered very well. With a couple of points I would like to add. Yeah, the first point is having that effort required to write the automation for the legacy code has to be considered in the effort estimation and the commitments that the teams are making. So that is the first step in getting the management team not getting panicked when the deliveries come slower than the other way around, because there is some slowness when they deliver the features, but not in the entire release cycle again, because we will gain that in the hardening cycles or the product version cycle later on. Number one. Number two, it is very, very important that the entire management chain, I would say engineering management chain, is part of the understanding of TDDs and its benefits. They have to be part of the trainings that we give to engineers. In fact, so let them come and sit there in those training sessions. How much ever they get, let them get it, so that they are part of the transformation, knowledge transformation as well. So once that starts happening, as a lead or as a manager for a given team, they don't have to worry about every other time going and defending why the team needs more time than what they need. Yeah, this is going to be a journey. There will be a slowness, but then that is a right cost or investment that we should incur or invest, so that we get the benefit in the longer run. Yes, there will be time, but we have to account for it and commit accordingly. As long as that we do that, I think we should be good.
Thanks both Vamshi and Selva. So there's a related question which I had. So do you suggest TDD for just a maintenance project, so very less enhancements? So do you suggest if there is a role for TDD in those projects?
I mean, if it is a pure maintenance project, maybe no, because again, like I said, you will not get the ROI that a TDD would give. But if it is maintenance plus ongoing development, which many teams would be encountering, like in our case, I would strongly and definitely say a big yes.
Okay,
and just to add to that, Anup, the challenge in doing the maintenance phase, we have, say, for example, we have both development and testing happening for the same product. and then we have maintenance also happening after releases are made. The challenge is we may have set of engineers working on maintaining the product in terms of bug fixing from customers and things like that. The challenge there is these engineers are also trained to ensure that they are writing automation for what code they are changing for the bug fixes, and also they are not breaking the existing test cases, and whenever they break, they go and change the update the test cases also to pass. So that's the one challenge. If you ask me, we have been going through that. We are trying to come out of it successfully. Yeah, the challenge is doing the maintenance phase of the product. How do we ensure that we maintain the test case that that we have written and they are still passing?
Thanks, Selva. Any question from the audience, or let me move to the next one? Yes, so this is a little outside the engineering part. So are there any real challenges in aligning non-engineering functions like product management, project management, information development, etc. to TDD?
I will take this question.
Yeah.
So on the product management, yeah, I think as we covered the previous topic, previous discussion also, there will be some slowness in the initial stages for the features to be available. And when we follow agile methodology, we will end up in having sprints and iterations, and we will have demos happening for whatever we develop in those sprints or iterations. And the PMs might see that it is coming slower than in the past. So we have to educate them that we are following this method, and then during the initial iterations and sprint cycles, there will be some slowness, but then it will be of good quality. So yeah, they have to understand that there is some cost, and that is of say approximately 10%, 15% of the other way around. So that is one challenge we had, and we had, I think, made them understand, and then they were aligned with our thought process, and there were no challenges after that. So keeping them informed, keeping them educated is very important on the product management perspective. The project management part, I don't think there are many challenges there, because project management tracks mostly towards milestones, yeah, they also have to know that there will be slowness in the iterations or sprints, whereas the overall milestone that we're supposed to meet as a feature completion, feature log, code freeze, beta customer cycles, all those things will not have any impact. So project management may not have many challenges in terms of adopting TDD. That's from our experience. Coming to information development or the configuration management, these are two other functions who support these, the IT development, right? So the information development team again did not have any major challenges in this front, because they were unaffected more or less by following TDD or not in terms of negative impacts. Positively, yeah, they were also getting more and more end-to-end inputs in terms of this particular workflow for the given feature is working fine, it is tested very well, you go ahead and document it. So that way they were getting inputs faster than the non-TDD model. I would say that's a positive impact and negative impact. Configuration management team, yeah, there was a change, because the build time might increase a bit, because we will be running the automation on top of the build that we are creating. The overall time that it may take to deliver a build may have some impact at times, depending on how we configure our build systems. But other than that, we didn't have any major impact to the CM team as well. So, Vamsi, do you want to add anything on the CM team other than what I have added?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. So, yeah, nothing to add from my side.
Yeah, so in summary, it's more about educating the product management and project management members, whereas the information development and the CM teams will be following the suit, because they will see a positive impact on where they are.
Yeah, in the CM side, the Jenkins pipeline looks to be like one suggested tool. So do you guys use the Jenkins pipeline for your projects?
Yeah, we will use Jenkins.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know if I have some way to present our dashboard. Maybe I can show it. I think it also gives the concreteness to whatever abstract ideas I've been discussing on the test pyramid. And so, is there a way you can make me presenter for a minute?
Yeah, sure, Krishna.
Yes, I can do it. One sec.
Okay, it's asking me to download something.
Will not take much time.
I will do that.
Meanwhile,
Yeah,
while
if there is a question, I can take that and
yeah. Meanwhile, while Vamsi is doing that, I do have an opinion that two things. One is QA engineers, test engineers, typically are the ones who are bridging the gap of a customer. They are the ones who represent customers within the organization through the knowledge of the domain and the value that they bring in finding defects early in the life cycle of the product, so that they don't escape to the customer. Right? That's the whole idea of having a quality assurance team. So in TDD, can I assume that the TDD as a process itself is going to give a lot of time more time to the QA team to actually focus on customer-specific testing, which is actually compromised in many places due to lack of time in product development and delivery process. So can I assume that test engineers can take more time in testing from a real customer point of view, which is actually the role of a test engineer? Right?
I will take that question. Question, that excellent point you have brought it up. Yeah, because of TDD, as we have been discussing, we have the code which is written for passing the failing test cases, which means we will not have these typical trivial defects being passed on to the test engineers to find and file and then get them verified again when they fix it. So they will not be spending too much time on trivial defects because they are all covered as part of TDD delivery itself.
Correct.
So that way, the test engineers will have lots of time in thinking and simulating the customer use cases while they are getting the final delivery for verifications. So excellent point. That is another takeaway in TDD, where test engineers are getting more time to think from customer perspective than just finding the trivial defects.
Thank you. Thank you.
You can see your screen now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, so yeah, I think I'm going to show something that we use as a dashboard. This is somewhat homegrown. Jenkins is definitely in the mix. So this is one of the projects we are currently working on. So whatever data I'm going to show is somewhat live, but don't draw any inferences out of this data. This is just for purely educational purpose for you. So basically, we follow Agile and we have like various teams working on it. And this kind of is our sprint thing, where every team, what are the stories they're working on, what are the number of test cases that we have got, etc. So they'll be listed here. By clicking on this, we will be actually redirected to another dashboard which shows us.
Vamsi, we don't see the browser. We just see your desktop background.
Okay, 1 minute. Can Krishnan make me presenter one more time? I'm not seeing how to do it again. Hold on.
Yep.
Are you able to see it now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
You have to actually. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Now we can.
Yeah. So this is a custom grown stuff that we have got, where we have built this tool. Jenkins is definitely in the mix. So basically this gives us various teams. This is typically, you can say, an executive dashboard that tells us that at any given point of time, this is actually for a completed sprint. So you can see that there are different teams who are working with different velocities, the amount of test cases that they have written for those stories, and how many of them are actually passing and failing. So this, by clicking on one of the links, will take us to another view, where if the team is working on 3 stories, so 3 stories can be, for those of you who are not from Agile background, it's basically 3 requirements. So you can look at the story. We can then say that there are 85 unit test cases, there are some component test cases, and some end-to-end integration tests. So like I said, we are striving our best to make our product follow the test pyramid, which means the end-to-end testing has to be as small as possible. And so as you can see here, the ratio that we maintain is definitely great, because we have 177 test cases and some 7 integration test cases and almost like 1 end-to-end test case. That's the kind of effort that is taking. So which means an end-to-end test case is typically the one which requires us to install the whole build, configure the whole system, and then make sure that everything is working fine. So that is one of the greatest achievements that we have got. So this is another team's view, and this is how their pyramid looks. So which means the number of unit test cases are more than the kind of end-to-end test investment that we have got. So by clicking on them, we'll get into further. You can dig deep into each individual story. There is something called as Quanto, which we use as a test case database and all that. And only Jenkins will not get you here, because Jenkins is typically a build tool which can run certain test cases during the build, like unit tests, for example. But in our system, there are unit test cases, there are integration test cases, and there are end-to-end test cases that we use Python and other tools to create. And there are also manual test cases that are maintained in tools like Testopia. When a manager is, or when an executive dashboard needs to be presented, we need to combine information from all these different systems. Like the Jenkins is producing unit test case reports, Testopia is presenting the report about manual test cases, our homegrown automation is producing results that are in homegrown format. There are integration tests which are actually trying to use some kind of simulated softwares to produce results. Now these are all different systems, so we actually have to combine them. Everywhere there has to be tracking about the code versus the user story that the code is being developed for. Now you tie up all these 3 things, all these 4 things, and present this kind of dashboard. That's where we had a lot of creative effort done. But by and large, we used a lot of open source tools. I wouldn't say we would have spent hours together to get this dashboard working. It was one of the Hackfest ideas, and then later on it saw the light of the actual implementation. But what it gives is, at any point of time, we can actually map a requirement all the way down from Testopia to our integration tests and to the unit test level, and say if something is broken, what will be broken for the end customer. That's the kind of mapping we have achieved by doing all of this. So it's worth every penny of investment that we put into it. Secondly, this is all repeatable, because every time this, so there are, right now this is not run, but every time any change is made, Jenkins will make sure that these unit tests are run. That means 163 test cases are running. They're validating that the feature is not broken, and we do that for every story that we are building. So as I speak, just to give you an idea, we have about 7,000 test cases in our system built like this. So so many test cases are running every time to make sure we are not breaking those 7,000 requirements at least. Yeah, beyond that, anything else comes up that needs to be factored in, but that's what we achieved. And if there are any interested people, I can share how we build this, how you can also build it for yourself. Maybe I think we're running short of time here, but yeah. Did it give you some perspective of how everything is connected on whatever we said today?
Yep, it is, Vamshi. So it's excellent, in fact. So the pyramid is actually giving a very good perspective of what we are talking about. So that's excellent.
Okay. A quick time check. We are just 6 minutes before we would close the webinar.
Yeah. So I would like to take one more question about the architecture and design. So after that, we will probably close the panel discussion. So let me just, can you make the question? Okay. So this is one question which I want to, yeah.
Go ahead,
you can see my screen, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
in TDD, do we finalize the architecture and design upfront before even starting to write the first failing test? So this is one question which I have been pondering on. So, Vamshi, do you want to again take this question, or Selva?
I think Vamshi can take it better. He is the lead architect for us. I think
Yeah.
he will have more insights than me.
Yeah. So actually, I think architecture and design are very important aspects before even getting into a TDD discussion, because if everybody comes into the TDD discussion, takes a user story there and start trying to design it there, it's going to waste everybody's time. So that's one reason why I would say there has to be some homework done by somebody on the team who are senior enough to do these tasks. So in our teams, what we practice is we have two leads for every Scrum team, one representing the dev function, one representing the QA function. So those two guys are responsible for understanding the requirement prior to the initial meeting. So they will understand, they will have some laid down thoughts, and they will be usually the ones who drive the actual meeting when the TDD meeting is called for. Of course, in the TDD meeting, it's extremely important that only they don't talk, but let everybody speak and raise their concerns and actually facilitate the meeting. That's very critical. But then this pre-work I would definitely recommend in our own implementation. So we do that, and similarly, just like we do the design for individual requirements, we do something at the architecture level. We work. So we have a team of architects who work one release ahead along of the rest of the team. So the ratio of which can depend on different projects and their needs. So we have a group of people who always work with product management, one iteration ahead, get all the stories researched, see the engineering feasibility of doing those things, do some POCs to concretize the ideas. And after we do that, we submit those model architectures. We do what we call as t-shirt sizing at that time. That helps us in planning the release better. And once that is planned, we hand it over to those team leads who drive the show from there to taking it to operations and execution. So that's what we do. So yeah, the short answer is it's extremely important. There is some homework, and that needs to be done by senior people.
Thanks, Vamshi. I think there are two more questions in the chat window. I don't know whether we have time enough to take that. Maybe Tina's question, I can work with Vamshi and then get those information if you want about the details of open source tools or libraries. For Ankit's question, how to deal with frequent requirement changes due to new legal requirement or some technical different change. So maybe if you can quickly give a short answer, Vamshi, do you want to take that up? Then we can.
No, so I think it kind of nicely summarizes what we have discussed. So TDD is a journey. As you start doing that journey, what you build up is a test case bank or the test cases that are close enough to code to validate what you are building. So what helps in the whole process is if there is a change in requirement, you can actually implement them and make sure that all your existing code is not breaking by running all these test suites and making sure that things are working in place. So that way it gives you that scaffolding for you to build and adopt to ever-changing needs of the requirements. It could be legal, it could be financial, it could be compliance, it could be standards, it could be 100 reasons, but that's the nature of the game we are in. Requirements keep changing, and this gives us the required armor for making that happen in a seamless way.
Thank you, Vamshi. Salman, I'm sorry actually, so I think we will not be able to take this question now.
I think, Soman, what we could do is maybe, in the upcoming conference, probably we could try and achieve that if possible.
Sure. Face-to-face conference maybe. So if we have a workshop there, we probably can get it.
Correct. Exactly.
Okay, so thanks for the panel members' excellent discussion, and even the audience jumped in with their questions, and it was interactive is what I thought. I have noted down some of the points which you discussed. To summarize that, So the TDD is basically like looking like a defect prevention strategy where you look at and understand all the tests and then make it. You will find very less defects at the end. So another point which I have discussed is about saving time. So additional time is spent in development is very minimal compared to the time savings which we get as a whole project. So that's another point which I thought I wrote written. The biggest challenge is about the developers' mindset changes, and challenge is basically ongoing, is what Selva talked about. Another one which I have is need for collaboration. So need for collaboration is one of the things which in all projects, in any type of software development model, we talk about the need for collaboration. And TDD seamlessly helps to achieve that. It's another point. And so the test team's role was another question which Aruna asked. Test teams are focusing on automating scale and performance test cases, which actually is adding more test coverage. That's what I have noted down there. And about the how you align the non-engineering things. So the major impact is on the PMs. The PMs will feel that the initial delivery is slow. So the solution is to basically educate the PMs about the initial slowness and talk to them about the entire delivery of the project will happen on time, and it will be even faster is what we need to basically educate the PMs in this process. And in terms of architecture and the design, so this needs to be finalized before even the TDD discussion starts, is the point which came out from Vamsi at the end. So in his project, looks like there is another set of small team which works one release ahead, and they do all the research and feasibility study so that the work product can be given ready for the TDD discussion. So that's what I have to summarize here from the discussion. Anything to add from the panel members, Vamsi or Selva, to closing?
Just one comment. I think it was a great opportunity for us to share our experience in this process, in this journey. And there are great questions which are more practical in nature from the audience, and we could answer as much as we could from our experience. And my one-liner would be TDD is the way, and this is going to help us to transform our software development methodology in a big way going forward. Please go for it. Go talk to the people and then get it done in your organization.
Thanks, Selva. Vamsi, do you have anything as a closing note?
No, I think it was one of my own personal experiences that I tried to share, but different people will have different experiences with TDD. Maybe in a future discussion, if we get more experience sharing from others also, I would like to hear and learn from those experiences. So it was a great opportunity. Thanks, Krishnan and Anup, for inviting me. I think I really felt rejuvenated sharing what we have done. So thank you for the opportunity, and I hope we left you with something to think about.
Thanks, Vamsi and Selva. So it was excellent. So according to me, it was an excellent discussion, and I can see some of the comments coming in the chat window as well. So excellent work. So over to you, Krishnan. So do you have any closing comments?
Yeah. I hope. Just take a minute before we close. I know that we are past the time. Just take a minute. I think it has been fantastic, and this is another great successful conference, and there's a value that this conference has brought in people's minds. Thanks, Vamsi and Silva, for accepting the invitation and coming here all the way, and making the presentation. It was a great session, and I too learned a lot. Anup, great moderation. Looks like, I feel that you're a seasoned moderator. It's been fantastic moderating the whole session. I'm just leaving with a few thoughts. One is, am I audible?
Yes, Krishnan, go ahead.
Excellent. So one is, I do believe that we as humans, right? Human behavior is all about taking incremental changes, taking incremental steps. You think before you talk, you check before you buy, you see before you act. Or there's a famous saying, right? You look before you leap. So you test before you really implement, right? No, I'm just leaving. So it's a very natural human behavior. And for some reason, in software development, things got changed and became a bit unnatural, and we started doing things in a holistic, monolithic approach. I don't know why it happened that way. Probably our forefathers would let us know about it, but that's probably the way we are actually going back to our natural instincts. So TDD is not an exception, right? Anyway, okay. So just a quick summary from a community point of view. Help sharing the knowledge. Participate enthusiastically in the webinars and conferences, like the way we did today. Come in large numbers. We had pretty good strength today. I think it went up to 23 people. So it's a pretty decent strength, given Saturday being the weekend and everybody having their own priorities. Thanks to all of you for participating. I would request, let us bring the topics for discussion for the webinar. It need not be just my idea or a few people's idea. So if you have an opinion on what to take in the next webinar or conference, let all of us know. Put it in the WhatsApp group or send an email. Anything is fine. So we will take that, discuss with you, and we will take it forward. And last but not the least, spread the word. Get your friends and colleagues into the community, because we need to grow. And the experience that you had just now, we all had just now, it would be quadrupled if we have more and more people participating, right? And I'll leave you with that. Please fill the survey, for sure in next few days, so that I can organize, I can talk to the company and organize a live face-to-face conference in April. The dates are yet to be finalized. It would be on a Saturday. So with that, I'm ending the conference webinar. Thank you all for coming in. Saturday well spent. Have a good time with your family. Have an excellent weekend. Enjoy yourself and be happy. God bless you. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.